This is James Lux, and I'm delighted to be joined today with former world champion Bronco McKart. Bronco, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I see this. Can you see where this is blocking me or no?
No, you're good. You're good.
Am I? Okay. Okay.
Fantastic. So I want to take you back to the beginning. Do you remember your first day walking into the boxing gym? The first time you put on those gloves, the first time you smelt that gym. What was that like for you?
Well, so my first time, my very first time, I was like 9 years old, 9 or 10 years old, and I tried it and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Then when I came back at 14, my heart was really into it. I loved everything about the gym. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the smell. I loved the first time that I sparred a guy and hit him with a clean right hook and he dropped. And I was just like, I think I was more shocked than he was. And when I knocked him down from the right hook, at that moment, I was like, uh-oh, I might have found something here. And I just fell in love with it.
What was it about boxing that you wanted to go back to the gym after you hated it so much at 9 years old?
Well, for me, I was just at a point in my life where I was running around with a really bad group of guys. And my father sat me down and just told me one day, he said, every day when you get home from school, you're going to do something with me. I don't care if it's football, baseball, softball, boxing, golf, tennis. I don't care what it is, but every day you're going to spend time with me. I'm going to change the direction of your life because I can see where you're headed and I'm not going to allow that to happen. And my dad, I loved him, respected him, but I feared him too. So when he sat me down, I knew he was serious. And so I started going to the boxing gym with him. He was actually training fighters at the time. Had a gym full of guys. And so I went down there. Actually, they made me for like 3 months before I could ever throw a punch. Him and my uncle made me just work on footwork, nothing else. That alone was kind of a mind game with myself because that's very boring. I wanted to actually box, but they worked on my foundation and got that right first. And I fell in love with it was me versus me basically. You know, I didn't have to beat a guy out to make the football team. I didn't have to beat a guy. I had to beat myself. You know, I had to beat the person right in front of me to get where I wanted to go. And I just love that individual sport thing. And my father, he changed my life because all the guys I ran around with at that day or at that time, every single one of them ended up in either jail, prison, or dead, except for one friend. And me and him are best friends to this day.
You mentioned it changed your life. I was going to ask you this question. At what point did you realize it was a life-changing decision to go back to the boxing gym?
I don't think until I was probably around 18, 19 years old when I started seeing my friends actually go to prison and seeing some of them shot, drug overdose, whatever the reason they were gone, whether it be locked away or, death. And I think it hit me like, wow, thank God that I had a dad who stepped in and changed my life. And boxing was that road for me.
You mentioned a moment ago about the first time you sparred, first time you landed a clean right hook, dropped the guy. When did you realize boxing was something that you was good at?
Again, right around the age of 19, 20, I started believing in myself. A lot of people around me would say, boy, you've got something different. I think someday you could be champion. And I would think to myself, what are they talking about? I just didn't have it in me. Here, I had the skills, but I didn't have it in my mind. And then right around the age of 19, 20, I realized I can fight. I can fight, and I think I can handle myself against anybody on any level. And once that self-belief caught up with the boxing skills, things took off for me.
How big is that for you? How big was the power of having belief and a mindset and mentality that you can do it?
It's huge. I share this with kids all the time. I say, if you put 100 people in a room, 99 of them stand in the other room and they say, you can do it. I believe in you. You can do it. And you don't believe in yourself. Doesn't matter. Flip that around. You can put 99 people on the other side of the room against me, and I believe in myself. I'm going to succeed. You have to believe. You have to apply the hard work with it, the discipline, all those things that go with being successful. But you have to believe in yourself and have to believe that you can do it. And once you have that self-belief tied in with everything else, you're unstoppable.
I want to talk about your pro career. The first time you entered the ring, you made your debut as a pro in your hometown in Michigan against a Bruce Anderson. First time in the ring with no head guard, no vest. What was that feeling like to make your professional debut, to get paid as well?
I have to tell you, right now, as we talk about it, I get goosebumps. If I didn't have my shirt on, you would literally see goosebumps. I swear to you. I remember at the Palace of Auburn Hills, which was a big venue. It's where at that time where our Detroit Pistons professional basketball team played, and they put on a lot of big events there. And I remember walking down that tunnel, and I came out to that song "Jump Around" by House of Pain, and that music hit, the crowd roared. I was like, there were thousands of people from my hometown that showed up to my pro debut. I was numb. I barely remember anything once I heard the eruption of that crowd. I believe I stopped him in maybe the first or second round. I don't specifically recall, but I just when I heard the roar of the crowd, I went completely numb, and it was just it was the most unbelievable feeling, the biggest adrenaline rush that you could ever have, and I loved it. I fell in love with it right at that moment. I was like, this is me.
You mentioned there Detroit, the thousands of people there in attendance that night. Detroit's a fighting city. Was you somebody who had a good fan base from day one?
Yes, from I see. I live in a small city, Monroe, Michigan, which is about 30 minutes south of Detroit. And my fan base down here was just they were loyal, and they to this day they're this city, the people, they're so good to me. You know, I walk into the local businesses and around the local community, and they're just so good, so friendly, show so much love to this day. And my way of saying thank you for all the support you gave me throughout my career is anytime they have fundraisers or local events, I try to make myself available when I can. I get to go do that a lot in Ohio as well, Toledo, Ohio. I get to do things around Detroit and different places too. But my home city really supported me very well.
What's it like to have a city behind you? We've seen it throughout the history of boxing, the likes of Ray Mancini, Kelly Pavlik, Paul Spadafora. They're from these little cities, these little towns, and everybody is a loyal fan to them. What's it like to have a fan base like that who stay loyal to you?
It's an amazing feeling. You're running. It's almost like real life Rocky. Sometimes you're running down the street, and when I back in the day when I was in my heyday, and I'd be out jogging on a daily basis, and all the horns that would honk, and the people that would wave, and love you, champ, wish you the best, champ, and all those things, and the kids, the kids walking up to you and just being excited to see you, and just the way that the people, the love that they gave me, and it was mutual. I loved my city. I wore my high school varsity sports letter on my boxing trunks. At times in my career, I wore Monroe High football jersey into the ring. I was proud of my city. I was proud to call myself from Monroe, Michigan. Still am to this day. I grew up in the east side, the port side of town, and I'm so proud of where I came from. Love the east side of Monroe. Love the city as a whole. And just like I said, my way of saying thank you is being there for them when they need me, and it's a mutual feeling, and they still show me a lot of love. A lot of the people do, anyways.
I believe you trained down at the Kronk gym. Now, there's not many, if any, better gyms to learn your trade. So talk to me a little bit about your time from the Kronk.
Okay, so from '92 to '96, I trained what was called Galaxy Boxing Gym, which was managed by Jackie Callan. James Toney was there, middleweight champion of the world. And so I was there for my first 4 years, and then from '97 forward, I trained at the Kronk Boxing Gym from like '97 to '04, and that was just surreal, because as a kid, I knew all the names, I knew all the stories, and to be in there and to be a part of it. And I'll tell you something that really stuck out to me. So they had two locker rooms in there, and one of them, had the names of the champions on the door: Tommy Hearns, Michael Moore, Milton McCrory, Dwayne Thomas. The list goes on and on and on. And one day I was leaving to go into the other shower, and Tommy Hearns stopped me and said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going. I go take a shower." He said, "You shower in the champs locker room." And I was like, "Man, wow!" Because I love Tommy Hearns growing up. I have a great story about him. It'll take about a minute. I got caught when I was like 14 years old stealing Tommy Hearns posters out of boxing magazines at a local library. And they put me on the list for a year. I was banned from the library, but they let me take the posters. I had like 4 posters. I hung one up in my bedroom, one up in my locker at school, one up in my workout room, and one up at the gym where we trained at. And I looked at those posters all the time. I wanted to be like Tommy. I wanted to have that big V back. And that, I was left-handed, but I wanted that big punch and, knock people out. And I wanted to be just like Tommy Hearns. And I shared that story with him one night. We were having dinner because I've known Tommy since I was about 21. And I became great friends with him over the years. And I said, every once in a while, Tommy, when we're having dinner, it's still surreal to me because you were my boxing idol. You, Muhammad Ali, you were the guys that I wanted to be like. And I lived and died Tommy Hearns. He lost a fight. I'd cry like a baby. And so just to be able to be around him. And when I shared that story with him, he laughed so hard. He said, "You never told me that story." I said, it was kind of awkward to say it. We've been friends for 20 years, but I figured it's time to put it on the table. So, but it was great being at the Kronk gym. The gym was just so hot and it had just such a different mentality. That was a kill or be killed gym. That was not a gym to play around with. It wasn't like a fun, let's go hang out in the boxing gym. That was, if you stepped in the ring to spar down there, you better be able to fight, because if not, you're going to be carried out.
You mentioned that it's a kill or be killed mentality in there. It's a doghouse. It's a lot of people go in there. I remember reading Andy Lee's book, and he spoke about the first time he went into that gym, and it was straight away get in there, spar. People are screaming, hounding him, fresh meat, fresh meat,
fresh meat. Yep. That's the first. As soon as I walked through the door, I hadn't even put my duffel bag down yet. This was when I was an amateur, though. Fresh meat, fresh meat. Who's going to kill the effing white boy? Fresh meat, And I was like, oh, man, I think I was 17, 18 at that time. And so I got in there, sparred a pro, and we went to war. We got in a big fight. We were wrestling around the floor and, all kinds of stuff. And, man, I'll kill you. We can go outside. I said, we can go outside if you want to go outside, but I earned my respect right then and there. But that was like a one and done. I kind of went there, tried it out. Like, that ain't my thing. So, but when I turned pro, came back there. When I came back to the Kronk boxing gym, I was already world champion. So when I walked through the door, the exact same guy, Othel Bam Bam Lawhorn, he was standing on the ring post. I walked in, he was like, fresh meat. And I was like, bam, I ain't fresh meat anymore. You think you know that? And he started laughing. He said, I know, champ, but I do that to everybody walks in the door, And so I trained there for, like I said, for 7 years. And I forgot to mention a great name, Gerald McClellan. He was a guy, great champion. And when I was an amateur, like I said, the time I went there, a couple of times I went there as an amateur, I didn't really know who he was initially, right? But I saw him walk in the gym one day, and I knew Kronk was a tough gym. And I saw him walk around the gym. Can I get some work? No. Can I get some work? No. The whole gym was turning him down. I'm standing there watching this. I'm a very observant guy. So he walks up to me, he said, can I get some work? I said, no. He started cussing me out, right? I said, hey, listen, I don't really know exactly who you are, but all I know is that guy's a world ranked light heavyweight. That guy's a heavyweight contender. That guy's a middleweight contender. They're all turning you down for a reason. I'm amateur. Whatever reason they're turning you down, I'm just following suit. He walked away, and another guy said, you know who that was? I said, no. He said, that was the G-Man. I said, man, that was Gerald McClellan. They just look different out of their element. You see him on TV, and I was like, oh, man, I'm glad I did turn him down. And I shared that story. I shared that story at an event that they put on for Gerald. His whole family, they laughed. They got a big kick out of that.
Fantastic. Just one last question on the Kronk. In terms of the atmosphere, when you first walk in there and that fresh meat call comes over and you hear that, how intimidating is that?
Well, as an 18-year-old teenager amateur, it was super intimidating. Where I was thinking, oh man, what did I really get myself into, right? But as a world champion with 30, 40 fights, when I showed up there under my belt, hey, I loved it. I loved it. There was a different the first time around, second time around, like, let's do it. You know what I mean? I'm going to show you boys that I'm not the guy, right? And so I earned my respect right away, and I loved it there. It was just a great gym, great atmosphere. But like I said, it's not for the faint of heart. Kronk Gym was not for the faint of heart. You better be a man's man, a woman's woman, whatever you better be that person when you walk through those doors.
Do you think the intimidation and the mentality in that gym is the reason why it's so successful?
Absolutely a big part of it for sure. I mean, these guys were Emmanuel Stewart did a great job with the fighters. And so did Walter Smith, who actually was one of my trainers there, and Floyd Logan and Lee. And I mean, there was a apprentice. There was numerous trainers that were kind of like a staff to Emmanuel Stewart. They kind of got the guys ready, and Emmanuel Stewart fine-tuned everybody. But the difference between like the Kronk boxing gym and some of these other successful gyms in boxing is Emmanuel Stewart took a group of fighters from ground zero, from their first amateur fight all the way up to the world title, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them. You'll never see that again. You'll never see a train. You'll see guys like Freddie Roach and Derek James and different people who have established themselves in the boxing sport of boxing, and fighters come to them and they maybe add to their skills, get them to the next level, get them world championships, or they might have been former world champions and they get them to the next one. But you're not going to see one coach build a whole gym almost from lightweight to heavyweight of world champions like Emmanuel Stewart did in the Kronk boxing gym. You'll never see a gym like that in the history of the sport.
I agree completely. Completely agree. You give me some great stories on Thomas Hearns. You give me a great story on Gerald McClellan. You mentioned another name in there, James Toney, at your first gym. Any stories about James Toney?
Oh God, man, I can tell you a million stories about James Toney. But here's what I'm going to tell you about the guy. James has a reputation of being a very mean, intimidating, and he was all those things. James Toney is not a guy to play around with. He's a serious guy. But that guy treated me like a brother. James Toney was so good to me. The one story I don't really like to tell all the animal side stories of James Toney's and the things that I've seen him do. It is fun once in a while when you're with your friends to kind of tell those stories. But the one story that really hit me the most about James Toney for me personally was we were getting ready to go to my first training camp. At his training camp, they were just bringing me along to let me see what it was like. I was getting ready to fight Skipper Kelp at the time. And he gave me a list of things that I needed to bring for the trip. I was a whole list of things. And I was like, champ, I'm a young fighter. I don't have the money to buy all that stuff. I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, give me that list. So I gave him the list. Next day I come to the gym, and right in front of the office door, all brand new boxes of every single thing that I needed to make that trip. And he said, here you go. Basically what he was telling me, I believe in you, Bronco. I'm going to give you every opportunity to get to that next level. He would put me on his undercards of his big fights. And I remember he was getting ready to fight a fight for top rank. And he wanted me on the undercard. And they told him they didn't have a spot for me on the undercard. James said, then I'm not fighting. They're like, James, you're making $1 million or whatever you were. He said, I don't care. If you don't put Bronco on the undercard, I'm not fighting. They said, well, he's going to fight somebody. And then he said, you put in there whoever you want. He's going to be on there. And he put me on the undercard. That guy was willing to walk away from $1 million if they didn't put me on the card. So I love James Toney. Without James Toney, without Jackie Callan, without my dad, of course, I would have never went to where I went without those people being behind me, believing in me and pushing me and giving me opportunities to get to the next level. Love all of them. My dad's still around. Love my dad. He's my very best friend. I love James Toney. I love Jackie Callan to this day.
Fantastic. We spoke about your pro debut and the feeling it gave you, the emotions you had, and the pride you clearly still have to this day about your pro debut. I'd say probably the next biggest tie would have been winning the world title. What did it feel like to have your hand raised as a world champion for that first time?
Very emotional for me because anybody that knows my story knows that my grandpa Smith, my mom's dad, was one of my biggest supporters, and I was also super close to him. And about a year and a half before I won the world title, my grandpa passed away. But I had made a promise to him that I was going to win the world championship. And I said, Grandpa, I'm going to win this. Man, you're going to see it. I want you to touch this belt. I want you to feel it. I'm going to do this. I'm like a year away, Grandpa. I'm getting there, And so he didn't make it to see me win the world title physically. Spiritually, in my heart, I believe he did. But so getting ready for that fight, as I was training for that fight, I had a picture of me sitting on his lap. He was a big guy. He's funny, big, jovial, laughy guy. I was sitting on his lap and had my arm around him. He was laughing really hard. And I took that picture and had it put on 7 shirts and it with the number 4-U, 4U. And it was just me and him on that shirt. Training that shirt. I had those 7 shirts made so I could train in that shirt every day, getting ready for that fight. To remember that this fight here is bigger than me. I have to win this fight. This is a promise I made, and I'm keeping this promise. And so when I won that world championship, man, I just remember like falling to my knees, crying. I was crying. I was crying, you know, I'm world champion. That was great, but that was probably 20% of the tears. The other 80% was, you know, here, Grandpa, you know, here, you know, I want you to see this. And I held his picture up high, you know, and we had bought a ringside seat. He always wore a floppy hat. We put his floppy hat in the ringside seat, put his picture in the seat, paid the money to have that seat take for him, you know, and so to win that and to see my dad crying and my mom, and, you know, it just, the emotion of it was great. No feeling inside the boxing ring ever could beat that, ever.
You've reached the pinnacle. Every boxer turns pro to win the world title and become a world champion. What next? Is there anything for you to achieve? Or at that point, do you feel the only way is to decline potentially because you've already reached the top of the mountain?
Well, you know, in my mind, once I reached that, I wanted to start unifying. I wanted to, you know, have a chance, opportunity to unify. I wanted to fight the best of the best, which I did, but I wanted to. I didn't want to stop there. You know, of course, I wanted to be a numerous champion, a multiple weight class champion, all those things. My initial goal was to win the 147-pound championship before moving to 54, but my body just couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't make that weight anymore, so went to 54, won that championship. And you know, it was a great feeling. The thing about it is no one can ever take that from me. It's in the history books forever, and you know, my name will be in the history forever. That alone is something that I carry, you know, with pride. I don't necessarily carry it and beat it on my chest, but I keep it in my back pocket, and it just feels good to know that I did what I set out to do, and accomplish my goal. So it is, you know, when you like I tell people all the time, when I see football players, there's different mindsets. And Tom Brady, when he was with the New England Patriots, that guy was taking cuts in his contract to keep that team together so he could keep the players to keep winning championships. When you talk about GOATs of football, when you talk about the greatest quarterbacks of all time, if you don't mention Tom Brady, me and you can't even have a conversation, right? If you don't say he's one. So it was all about legacy. And then you got some guys that play for the money, and that's all fine and dandy too. But money, here's the thing about money. You need it to live, that's great. But shit, you know, banks can collapse, economies can change, money can disappear overnight. You can be a millionaire today, broke tomorrow. But if you're a world champion in football, basketball, baseball, you're in the books forever. Nobody can ever take that away from you, and I'm good with that.
Absolutely. In boxing, there's always highs, there's always lows as well. You fought Winky Wright. You mentioned a moment ago you fought the best of the best. Winky Wright was one of those. You fought him 3 times, a trilogy, unfortunately, unsuccessfully on all occasions. How did that feel to try and not succeed?
I can't lie. I still feel in my heart the first fight that I won that fight. I feel it was close. I'm not saying I dominated by no means, but I feel I did enough, especially as the world champion. I felt I won the fight. I think the thing that irritates me most about the first fight, even to this day, and you're talking 30 years ago, and it could still fire me up like it was yesterday, is, you know, both camps get together. I was, not me personally, not him, but the camps, our managers, our promoters, they all get together, and his team picks a judge, my team picks a judge, and they throw a neutral judge in the mix. So the judge he picks votes his way. The neutral judge votes my way. The judge we pick goes his way and tells us, I didn't want to be too, you know, like obvious or are you stupid? You were picked because if it's a close round, you're giving it to the hometown champion. You don't, you know. So that was tough because 1 point and that fight's a draw and I'm champion again. I'll probably never see him again, right? I'll probably never see him again. Saying I'm staying away from that guy. We're just forget him, right? We got the draw. I'm still champ. Move on. Let's not look back at him. Well, at that point in our careers, it kept coming down to me and him. He would beat his guys. He'd be number 2 or number 1, and I'd beat my guys. And we'd have to fight. And we'd have to fight. And I felt I was going to get him, but of course, the third fight, I got stopped on a low blows, got disqualified. Yeah. Second fight was the best fight he fought against me. He fought really well, He boxed really well in that second fight. A third fight, I felt I was still landing some good shots on him in that third fight, and was trying to bring it to him. And unfortunately got DQ'd for low blows. But tell you what, if you're going to lose to somebody, it's great to kind of see them go on and do great things, right? Because I didn't just lose to some average fluke or anything. I lost to a real legitimate world-class boxing Hall of Fame fighter, a guy that I felt I beat the first time. So I know I was right there on the cusp. If things go different, I feel like I dominate the junior middleweight division for a few years. I don't feel like there was anybody that was going to beat me at that time, because I had it here, but I had it here. I get past him, I don't see him anymore. I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to look at that guy again. But, things went a different way. And then I fought, I fought for world championships a few times after that. Travis Sims, lost a fight to him. Kelly Pavlik, I fought Kelly Pavlik at middleweight. I lost. To my last fight was the Toney Harrison. When I fought him, he was younger than my oldest daughter. And that was kind of like the joke in my house, Well, Dad, at least you're getting beat by people younger than your oldest kid, But I loved the sport. I loved what it did for me. I love the opportunities like this to be able to sit down and do interviews and talk about it. And it's always every interview for me is an honor and a privilege. And thank you for having me on, by the way.
No, it's a pleasure. Honestly, thank you for coming on. In terms of, we mentioned your last fight there, fighters can struggle to retire, and a lot of fighters, because boxing's all they know, have done it for such a long time, they don't see anything else after the sport. Did you struggle to retire?
Well, I didn't struggle to retire. The first year after retirement, when I read the article that my local paper wrote on me about my retirement, after finishing reading the article, I was sitting in my garage in a chair, in a rocking chair. It's just kind of ironic. I'm in a rocking chair. Reading my retirement thing, and I set the newspaper down, and I was like an emotional wreck. I didn't know which way to turn, because it's like, oh my God, I've done this for 20-something years. What do I do? Where do I go? I didn't know what to do, because all the discipline, all the get up in the morning at this time, you eat at this time. You can have a cheat day on Wednesday. You don't cheat Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. If you want to cheat on Saturday, maybe not, all these things. And what do I do with my life? And so I was depressed. Man, I was depressed. I was lost. I was lost for a year. I was truly lost. And then my really good friend, who I spoke of earlier, the only guy that never went to jail out of our group, just came over one day and he told me he was concerned about me. We had a really good talk. My brother, the very first day that article came out, he called me because he knew. He called me, and I was just like, I was bawling, to be honest with you, because I had all these emotions, didn't know what to do with them. Usually when I got emotional, I go hit a bag, right, or spar somebody. Now I don't know what to do with all these feelings and emotions I have. And he picked me up. We went out. We had a great night. Just had a great time. And he just told me, he said, Bronco, you did yourself proud. You did us proud. I love you, bro. That's it. It's over. Let's move on. Let's find something else. And that was it.
In your words, Bronco, you fought the best of the best. You were a world champion. You achieved your goal. Now, looking back on your career and what you've done since your career, can you say that you're happy and proud of what you've done?
Yes, very. I'm happy. I'm proud. And anybody who's a real champion, that's here and here. That's not necessarily, you might not even be in the books, but anybody who has that real championship mindset, we don't talk about necessarily the fights we won. We talk about the ones we lost and how we should have won those, right? Because a real champion, I don't care if I had 100 fights and was 99-1, we'd probably be talking about the one, because that's just how it works. Because when you really want to win, you want to win every time. But overall, in the big picture, I'm happy. I'm proud. I get to do really really good things and be around a lot of good people and great opportunities that I would have never been afforded if I wasn't a professional fighter and went on to win the world championship like I did. So it's been good and I love it. And life is good and God is good. And I have no complaints.
Fantastic. I'm really pleased to hear that. But Bronco, the last question from me. Are you still involved in boxing? What are you doing these days?
So yeah, I am involved. I've been on. I retired officially in July of 2014. In September of 2014, I got appointed to it's called the Unarmed Combat Commission for the state of Michigan, which oversees boxing and MMA. So I've been on there since 2014. And I'm involved in approving fights, and sometimes I have to, do fines, suspensions, things that you do on a boxing commission. So I've been involved in that since 2014. I do real estate. I've been doing that for about 5 years, and I hold another position with the county of Monroe. So things are good. Things are good, and I have other projects that I'm working on right now. Probably a year and a half out from those, and when those come to fruition, it'd be another big thing. So it's I take everything like I did with boxing. I lay out a game plan, I study, and I try to figure it out. And so things are going really well.
Fantastic. Well, Bronco, I want to thank you very much for your time. We could speak all night. I'm sure I'd love to sit here and listen to all your stories. So I have to get you back on again and hear some more of those stories about some more
Absolutely.
fantastic fighters that you've worked with and trained alongside. But Bronco, again, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate you, and God bless. Thanks for having me on.
No problems at all. Thank you very much, Bronco. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Cheers.